Hello everyone and welcome to my oil painting class. And today we're painting the maze of streets in Istanbul around the Grand Bazar. We've got really exciting shadows and we've got some gorgeous light. We've got quirky shops and signs and some lovely ancient walls and some of the ancient stones. I'm really interested today to look at light and shadows. We've got loads of figures, we've got shop items and signs and motorbikes and all sorts of things. But I really want to see what's going to be light, what's going to be dark, and how those shapes might interpret some of these elements I just named. But they don't have to paint every hat or every shoes, whatever is showing there. We've got some air conditioning. Do we want to paint them? Do we not want to exclude them? Can we just focus on excitement of that light and excitement of that lovely maze of streets in Istanbul? Now, on my palette, I have some white. I've got some also buff titanium that will help us with some extra light and saves us using extra white. If you don't have it, white will be absolutely fine. With an addition of some ochre, that will be more or less similar color. And I have ochre and cadmium yellow. I have alizarin crimson. And if you have cadmium red or cadmium orange, that will be good as well. If you just have white, ochre, alizarin crimson, and violet, will be absolutely fine. So these three, well, four additional colors. So this is my violet, and this is my violet gray. Again, I can't see much of gray in it. I'm sure there will be mix in there as well, but the volume of white there helps us also almost like a pre-mixed color if we wanted to have a little bit more paler version of violet used. And then I have our usual ultramarine, cerulean, emerald green, and some Payne's gray. So these additional four colors, I'll show you how we can help ourselves if you were to explore the new pigments. Now I'm using a dark violet background to help us with that volume of shadow so we can straight away start thinking of the light. If you were to have a different color or slightly lighter tone, you might just need to bring some extra darkness when we work into the shadows. So I'm going to start sketching with my tips. I'm using my narrow round synthetic brush. And one of the colors I'd like to sketch today will be my buff titanium and my alizarin crimson. Now, buff titanium, if you don't have it, so just use a little bit of white and ochre, and that will be plenty. If it will be a little bit more yellowish, that will be wonderful. If it will be more towards the white, that will be wonderful as well. So I want to use the two colors, the lighter one for our highlights and the darker, the red, for the shadows. It will help us. I don't want to have white or kind of light color within our shadows, but also don't want red with a lot of our highlights. Okay, so because we've got quite a dark background, let's find the two gaps. We've got a building on the left, and we start to have the overhanging canopies from the building on the right. So almost two parallel lines. Let's find the proportion of the building on the left. And it looks like if I were to divide my picture into half here, this overhanging canopy is almost halfway through. So that's my halfway through. Canopy is just a little bit over that half, somewhere there. Okay, I'm talking about this line there, yeah? So that will give me an overall idea. Now I've got my pavement here. Again, if I look at the photo horizontally, sorry, height-wise, and put a halfway through point, it's probably a quarter where my pavement, that extra lights on the pavement starts. So that street merging with the other street. So if I were to divide it into half, so somewhere here, this shape is approximately stopping, and there's another street merging into that area. So that just gives us a little bit of that planning, okay? So I don't want to go too much into the perspective here because of the shadows. Yeah, I want to keep perhaps sketching here with something darker for later. This is my overall plan here. Right. There will be some extra light on the building, so that might be the canopy light, but also there might be some of the light on the building, so I'm going to start planning some of the light coming through across. Okay. I can also plan, so if my left-hand side building is a straight line, my canopy is probably going to be leaning tiny bit more towards the lower right corner, and it start creating a gentle, maybe percent or two of an angle. And I'm looking in comparison where that big canopy is finishing. It's almost, not quite halfway through, but quite low there. Again, that just gives me a little bit more of offset for the some of the shop signs where they might be going. We've got some lovely bolder lights coming through here. I've started to look for some of the diagonals. They're not quite perfectly in perspective because every building of every window of the shop is slightly or standing in or standing out away from the street. So I've got that direction there. Okay. And I want to plan, I wanted to find those boundaries, to find my beautiful arch here leading to the bazaar. So if I were to find a couple of floors here for the left-hand side building, I can put the directional line at the base of the windows and find that angle, yeah. And what's happening here? Can I move it across somewhere there? Maybe a tiny bit more steeper. I can tweak that as I go as well, but again, it just gives me that reference point. I'll just double check a little bit more, maybe tiny bit more of a steeper angle. And that's what's happened with my lighter lines. They're smudging into lighter color, so it's okay because I'll be getting quite a lot of lights in this area. Okay. Now the back building with the arch, it has an extra facade. It almost stands out from the wall behind it. So I can put another vertical line, okay, next to my left-hand side building. And at the top, I can see perhaps the end of the building there, perhaps it's the beginning of the roof. It's the photograph reflects, and it's quite difficult to say what it is. But there's a shadow underneath of it, so perhaps it might be another layer, another building coming across. And I can see there the lovely triangle part of one of the rooftops here. So that's area which stands out towards us. Yes, it's a classic Istanbul part of the exterior of the buildings having part of the room and windows, almost like a balcony, almost like an outdoor balcony protruding from the wall of the building. Okay, I can see a lovely window here, which will be somewhere across here. And the rest of the building I can't see because there is another canopy coming in. So that's approximate place for it here. And this time it's going to lean towards the left. I've got something here. That will be my shadow for it there. Okay. And then my balcony got supporting legs for it. I might just plan them as little vertical lines. And I'm going to find approximately where my arch is going to be. Okay, you can decide if that's too long or maybe it's too short. You can work with that. I think my arch from those supporting legs of the balcony, maybe a little extra space. And then the arch is not quite on this line. This is where the light from the street behind will be coming through. But the arch will be a little bit high. The road start to go up as well. So from that angle, it started to go steeper up. So that space where the arch is a little bit more further behind. It's not quite straight, actually. This line is more of the light. So it's, again, there are loads of streets, so it might be the end of my wall of the building, but it's not maybe where the arch is finishing. So the arch might be going behind, but we can't see that one. Okay, maybe not as tall, maybe just a little bit shorter. So then, sorry, this is maybe not as high. Okay, so it might be there somewhere. But we don't need that side, we only need this one. Okay. A few lovely stonework around it. Okay. I love that extra light on the street. It's actually got a lovely angle to it as well. This is maybe slightly exaggerated, but it's got the street going down. Okay, so I can see that by some of the light created there as well. Okay. So we're starting from a simplified structure, and then we start seeing more and more details behind, right? And then I think this light I'm seeing, it's probably something hangs on the building, overhang, so it protrudes out again. So perhaps the wall itself will be a little bit further down, kind of a bit more towards the right. But that light might be just some of the bazaars, shops, goods. So I might actually create a little bit of a positive shape of light in there. Okay, and that gives me still the space for the pavement, which is again full of goods. It's somewhere, probably gonna be somewhere here, that pavement. I did my lines here. Okay. So it's almost like when we painted Petra in acrylics recently, where we had big rocks and a gap between them. So this one's got a very similar scenario of darker shapes, exposing some beautiful light behind it. Okay. I can put a couple of bold lights, probably shining electrical lights to advertise the shops here as well. So I might just put a couple of very gentle vertical lines just to remind me it's not going to be all shadows, but there will be a rhythm of light and darks there as well. Okay. And then I'm going to have a look at some of my darker lines, darker shapes, and how we can work with them as well. So I'm going to wipe my brush, or if you've got another clean one, that would be good as well, because we're probably going to be moving from one color to another if we spot something else. Also cleaning the brush before moving into the red. This means that the red is not going to be lighter color. It will remain, the alizarin crimson will remain quite dark and without any white, so it will stay diluted and still stays dark. So if I were to test it a bit more here, yeah, it comes out quite dark color. Don't worry if it's quite red. We'll be picking up quite a lot of lovely shadows, and it will be used wisely. So what do I need with my red? So I already got some of my canopies. I don't have to draw them again, but I might just spot some extra ones. So for example, this one is a darker one. And within that shadow, can I see other shapes or protruding out? Okay, so I might just find some shapes. If it's becoming, if I'm going over my red, over my lighter color with the red, and it becomes lighter, I might even use tiny bit of violet or a little bit of black with it, so it just doesn't make it pink. Sometimes it just takes too much attention from what we want. And actually, that gives me an opportunity to spot um, this canopy we already drawn. It has a little corner of light, and then it's got a lovely shadow. Okay, loads of things underneath the shadows. Can we just identify some of the horizontal and vertical lines? There's a vertical one here, there is a horizontal one here, there is something else here. There's maybe part of that perspective direction of line. I'm not too worried what they are. Okay, I've got this light perhaps towards the sign or the beam or one of those areas, and there's extra shadows in that area, just gently following and then just gently leaning down. So you've got that parallel of the shape developing that way. Okay. Now, looking at the signs again here, I think that white doesn't exist anymore. That was my sketching. Can even paint over my shape here, so I see the unity of it a bit more. There is that big grands sign. Now, do I want it there? I quite like that geometry of one sign, another sign, another sign, but can I plan it in such a way it will kind of benefit my picture? There's a shadow behind it. Do I like the gaps between those signs rather than the sign itself? So I might look for that negative space of that canopy. So that's where I'm more paying attention to. And perhaps the gap it creates with a light between the next canopy. I don't know if they're connected or not. And then this sign of the shop hangs over. So I might make it a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit more narrower. I think it might just dominate too much if I were to keep it quite as big as. I think that would be enough. And the canopy behind it will connect it together. Okay, that tells me that this part could be just a tiny bit lower here as well. Okay. So that's side. So I'm looking for the darks, negatives, and what could be lighter positive shapes. And then I can start spotting some of the other signs. Okay, that will go over, maybe a little bit over somewhere here. That's where I need a little more of them, or black or violet, so that my earlier plan of highlights is painted over. And there is another one. Again, I'm looking for the shapes of it. So if it's connected almost like a triangle diagonal, yeah, I'm going to do that together instead of just doing a box below. Just color it in properly here. So it's all of that shape. So that's what I want us to see. It's quite a lot of white, so it doesn't quite come out strong. Alternatively, we can wipe the white off and just paint it a little bit over there. So it's the gaps between the between the signs, that's what I'm more excited about, and seeing how the light will be coming up around those areas. Okay. Right, so there'll be more vertical lines of extra darkness. Okay. And the rhythm of the clothes racks and what's on sale. There's a bit more of a horizontal line of the rack. There might be some tops and shoes and things hanging there. There's a mannequin. Do we really want to paint a mannequin? Not really. I might just keep it to the shadow. But the rhythm of the patterns will be quite nice when I start adding my colors. Okay, so that might be overhanging that rhythm. Lower part, yeah, something in there will come up. So I can start planning my strokes. It will show the busyness of the shop. At the same time, we'll show some lovely space. Got some beautiful hats in there. Okay, again, I can decide if I want the hats in there or not. Maybe a little bit lower all of this, if I were to bring the hats in. But the hats might be a block of light. Again, if I were to leave it blank for now, because the hats ideally will need to be painted in light rather than in my dark. Okay, so I'm talking through and exploring what I'm seeing, what I'm evaluating, what's important and what's not as important. Right, let's have a look what's under our arch. There's some lovely shadows there. I can define the wall of the arch now as well. Okay. There's almost a little bit less than halfway through the arch space. There is darkness. Again, there are some shops, there's some shelves, there are some darker, wider shapes of that dark. And then there is almost, again, the street goes still up, and it looks like a part of the shop showing another display board or something written on that wall in the back. And again, we'll see a little bit of light at the back there. And that's when we can start putting a little bit of silhouettes of people or shadows from Bazar, from the crowd, from the vehicles. So for example, on this corner, I can put a little figure somewhere here. There's something that's, yes, it's not quite a just shape. It's a group of shapes around it as well. So if I want to paint some of the figures on the street here, can I pick up perhaps a silhouette next to my shadows? Okay, and can I start working into them as a little group of that darkness? I can see just the sleeve of the man, and I can't see his arms because the arms are disappearing in a similar darkness. Yeah, if I can see his trousers. Okay, perhaps he's carrying something in there. So can I just keep him quite simplified there? I think I brought him maybe a little bit too big, so he's quite close to me. But to be honest, you know what? It's working. Instead of having quite a lot of space here, I might separate these two friends, maybe make this one, this other person, a little bit smaller head. Maybe he will be much further back. He's actually got a white top and I've got a dark pattern for it. But I can spot some of the darkness of the trousers. He's walking there. So I'm adjusting my composition and working with the shapes of light and dark. And he's walking somewhere there. And I can even plan their shadows across because we're seeing things as big shapes rather than as individual shapes. Okay, I think his head is so big it looks like a child. Okay, that's good. And I'm not stopping on the people. I'm carrying on. What else is here? What other goods are here? Looking, maybe spotting the extra angle for the pavement here as a motorbike. Can I just simplify it as a shape? I don't have to paint a motorbike, but I can paint a shadow of and sketch some of the representational. There's something there, but I don't have to know what it is. There's a shadow on the ground from it. Okay, might be carrying something else in there. Can I paint other groups of people at the back? Can I just add extra darker tones? I can't see if that's motorbike, a moped, some more children in there, some sellers standing across the street. Okay, that's becoming a busy street with environment we want to create. That's already Bazar to me here. Maybe more of a quieter corner with less customers right in front of us, but there will be loads of goods. Okay, there, these are hanging here. Yeah, they're ready to be looked at. Let's make them a little bit more standing out there. Yes, there's something there. I'm interested in catching the light around it rather than what are they actually saying. I can't see what exactly it is there, and I'm not interested. But that shape is wonderful. That shape is wonderful, and it just gets narrowed towards the pavement. Okay, maybe some of these ones even more. Maybe the pavement going to be just tiny bit more tucked in. Okay. Right. And now it's given me enough information to get started on my light and darker tones. I can start planning a little bit more of extra lights. And what I'd like us to do, if we can have two brushes in a go, one with more lighter tones and one with more the darker tones. We'll look at warm and cool as well, but if we'll start with the tones, I think that will be very exciting for us to work with. I'll just do a couple of windows on the left-hand side building just to give us final proportions or kind of not more of the directions of the perspective. So I've got a group of windows somewhere here. I don't go all the way to that level division or whatever that shape is going to be. So just a little bit of more of the rhythm of shapes again. And that rhythm continues somewhere here up. And that rhythm becomes a little bit more darker, but it reflects somewhere here as well. Very good. Right, now I'm going to have two brushes, one for my shadows and one for my lights. I went for slightly bigger for the shadows because I think I can paint it quite quickly in the blocks and then work into the colors after. Tiny bit smaller for the lighter colors, because I think I can bring quite a lot of exciting strokes and kind of maneuver the smaller brush quicker there as well. Right, let's start from the shadows. Now I'm going to start moving into my oil, so I can close my terp spot. So, could be quite runny, it doesn't have to be solid. So I'm going to start with my oil, and I'm going to go for a little bit of violet and a little bit of Payne's Gray. Now it becomes darker than my current background, but because it's quite transparent, I can also introduce other colors thicker later on. So it will give me a quick effect of darkness without over blocking my surface with thick paint. So I'm looking for that silhouette we were sketching with the red. So I might just define some of it a bit more. Okay, that red could stay as it is. Okay, that's all good here. And then find where it might be continuing in my building. Okay, some of these ones where some of the verticals will come up, and work with some big strokes. Okay, that's my bit of light, and that's might be some of that darkness coming in. So quite runny violet with Payne's Gray, mainly looking into violet rather than the black. And then I'm going to put a few of the verticals here with a big smudges. This darker shadow of or the mannequin, or it could have been a shadow of some rug, so it might be the owner standing here on the step, wrapped up in all the lovely oriental clothes, maybe some more of the darks of the goods on sale. Okay, I just put all that on a bit more in the shadow. And I bring some of these shadows a bit lower to my pavement. That's better. Yeah, these could go all the way down, up and down, so that variety will be there as well. Okay. Any similar darknesses under my arch. Now, if I put too much dark, I might just lose some of the detail, so just a little bit will be enough. Okay. And there is a darker doorway or gate or some sort of shadow on here on the opposite side. I think with all the motorbikes and shapes here, that will be quite nice. I might just reinstate a little bit more of that corner being darker. Okay, that's all good. All right, and let's have a look at our light colors. Again, I'll start with my oil, just plain oil. I'll use my buffer titanium or white and ochre. Okay. And if I were to add now, add a little extra red to that, we'll have a bit more of warmth coming through. Okay, now my ochre would have been actually even better. You've got a bit more extra yellow in the ochre rather than just buff titanium. So I'm just adding my ochre and my cadmium red, or could have been crimson, alizarin crimson to that. So it gives me more of a medium darkness in comparison to my dark violet. And it still allows me to have, so if I'm planning something somewhere here, I think it might be a bit too light. There's a little bit of shadows there as well, but I think it might be still a little bit too light. Okay, let's just put a tiny bit more here, perhaps towards the sign. Might give me a reference. There's a person there, perhaps, as a reference. Okay, just checking if it's gonna start looking better anywhere there. No, I think we'll need to go darker. So, to make my color darker, I'm gonna go for my cadmium, sorry, crimson. Okay, and I can go for my violet or violet gray. Violet gray got a lot of extra white in it, so it's much easier to add small amount to it rather than with a direct violet. We'll have to add more white to kind of to dilute it to get it slightly lighter. Okay, we're getting there, a darker color. So I'm looking for a brownish red for something that might be a little bit too dark, but let's just place it there for now as our starting point for that building in the shadow, but it has got quite a lot of lit up elements as well. So I'm starting with a big block. Okay. Okay. You can see where this earlier color will be really exciting as well to use. Okay, can I use a little bit more red in it? And perhaps a little bit more kind of warmer towards orangey color. So I just went for a little extra fresh orange. And that might be something coming up right here as a touch of light. So I want us to constantly think light, dark, warm, cold as well, but it's that playfulness of rhythms. Yeah, I'm interested in those strokes and that pattern of light more than anything else. Okay, maybe some of this will come here. Don't know if it's too similar in light, but we can always make it lighter. So we can always touch up. Okay, so that's giving us already this nice space. Okay, could there be any goods of similar colors? There are quite a lot of reds here. There might be rugs. There might be something else. Blocks of that light within the shadow. Okay, this man's top is quite dark red. Can I just put it on top of my violety strokes as a big block? Not interested in arms, legs. I'm more interested in the block of color. This other man had something similar at the back. I might put a fresh, bold light for the motorbike, or it might be just a pattern of light. There's a lovely red somewhere here. Okay. It's already becoming alive and a bit more exciting. So I'm already starting to see some lovely light behind the street. Now I've just wiped my brush. I haven't cleaned it. I've just wiped so there's no chunks of paint coming out from it of that reddish color. And I'm just gonna go for my white or titanium buff here, or that white and a bit of ochre, just a little bit more, not direct fresh white. So that's why I'm using this color. It's just easy to, you don't need to extra mix it. And I'm planning to place it where my boldest light is on the building at the back. It will start looking very white, although we know it's obviously not quite a white paint we're using. If there will be any shadows, I can leave them out. For example, some of the windows here could stay darker, but I'm interested in offsetting some of my canopies silhouettes. I actually paint all of that one together, so I see the shadow together more. Okay. Okay, a bit of a wobbly window, but that's not a big issue. And then these legs supporting will start having a bit of light at the top and they're getting darker below, so I might just keep that one out. But I can paint the gap between these two canopies now, so that's exciting. This is not quite the canopy gap, this is just a highlight on the one side of the canopy, so I might just keep it as something in between. Okay. Can I find a little bit of extra light? Again, there's a shadow, more of a shadow here, but if I paint a little bit of light initially, I can always shrink, sorry, always bring slightly darker color to go around my sign. Okay, that's there. And that's something in between. And what's this one? That's another canopy. That's just a gap. Just more of a gap here. Oh, that was this one. So I can use my other brush and help myself out to get back maybe a little more lower. Okay. Right. Any other lights at the back? Let's see, there will be some light behind our buildings. There will be that part of the roof or sky or whatever that might be. And I will catch slightly more light on the side here, but I want to bring something in between to lighten up even this part of the building, just gently catching it. So then that part could be slightly darker. So I'm going to bring that light here. So I'm not painting just individual building, I'm painting it against other shapes of light. Just mix that a little bit more, so it will be something in between here. Light is gently stopping just in the corner of our building here. See it as sketchy, don't see it as defined shapes. You can see a little bit of extra light caught on our arch. So if I had to start with defining it light first, I can always darken some of the borders. So, okay, and this gives me opportunity to see this sign better as well. Okay. And any other light behind that, I think might just make a little bit more coolness of the light. But I can see some highlights on the street, or even, don't know if that's actual street or some other stalls are there. I think we can see an actual street a little bit more lower down here, kind of coming between the figures here and there. But there is something else light in the area here. And I can shrink the heads of people at the same time. Okay, now I can paint my lighter building, but maybe a little bit cooler colors. I think if I were to mix my buffer titanium with my violet gray, it will give me like a grayish blue. So if you don't have those colors, use ochre, extra white, and some violet. Okay, if it's still remaining too brown, use a little bit of ultramarine. But that just giving me a beautiful color combination. I can just paint straight away. It's of a similar darkness. I can make it tiny bit more darker. It's so much easier to mix it rather than almost starting from scratch from white and ochre. And then it gives me that coolness, a hint of coolness from the blue in it, or that gray in it. Again, some of the highlights in my current building's color. So much easier to blend color and mix colors there. Increase that violet. In some of the shadows, I think I will increase some of the darkness of it in the shadows. Maybe even my windows could be of a similar sort of color. I can even use it for slight distant light what's behind the arch. So it's not going to be, okay, that's quite light. So let's just check if it's going to be too bright. Maybe a hint of blue to that. I'm using a little bit more of the ultramarine just to make it slightly darker. We want it light, but we want it to appear more of a shadow. Pavement, there is shops. Okay, exciting. A similar color looks lovely, will work beautiful as a white top for the man I've been painting here. So if I find his silhouette somewhere here for the distance, yeah, his white top was somewhere there. And his head eventually will materialize out of shadows. This man is carrying something light, a bag. So there's both titanium and grey violet working amazingly for me here. Can paint those hats here. It's kind of a neutral color for shadows. More towards the blue, perhaps for another hat. If you were to do hats in the first place. It's quite a lovely, playful thing to do. And also similar color for the pavement, where we can see some of it still light, close to our arch, and how it starts appearing between the groups of people, in between shadows. Painting the legs by painting a shadow in between them rather than finding the exact lines for trousers. I find it's easier to do that way rather than define that shape of the legs. That's he's there. Yeah, he's walking. Maybe the shadow need to get slightly dark as I'm coming close to the front, but that could be easily resolved by adding more violet and ultramarine to our color. And so more or less back to a similar color as my background. Just reinforce my fresh violet and Payne's gray for the shadow here. Just want to smudge it and integrate it a little bit more. I think a shadow coming from this angle will be quite good as well. And they're all starting to be part of one another. Good. Number plate on a motorbike. Just a little block of light. Something else on a motorbike, a frame, seat, lights. I don't know. I don't need to know. It's a pattern of light and darker shapes. Would have been a group of boxes, would have been totally fine too. Instead of a motorbike. And the same color is just traveling through and finding connections to our lit up areas as well. So these windows now no longer super dark, but they are part of that light changing environment, partially lit up, partially in the shadow. I'm really enjoying my blue gray, so violet gray. Gives me loads of opportunities to paint with. Okay, just matching things up here. So most of the environment is in place. Now it's how much or how little of the details we want to bring really. In my shops, sales, written, tops of the hangers or the tops of the shoulders of the goods. And even this mucky color will come up for part of my light over this concrete block. Now we've got some of the blocks of light and some of the blocks of shadows, as well as something in between. Let's pay attention to some highlights and kind of investigate even more light and also start changing more color. And we'll do similar, maybe in a less quantity for the shadows, because kind of the shadows already started to happen for me here, that's definitely. So I'm picking up a slightly smaller brush again. I will keep that medium brush I used as well. Because what I'd like to do now, I'm going to start working with my white now as the base of the light is there. So the white will be quite exciting. And a little bit of my yellow or just ochre will be good as well. Maybe a bit of both. Just put white and yellow on its own and looks a little too strong. So maybe something in between will be good. Okay. And let's start introducing this color for some of the lit up, direct lit up areas. So we've got it behind the signs. Okay, maybe actually the yellow will sit better, tiny bit more yellow. That's more saturation of light. Might be a stroke, maybe another stroke next to it. So I'm painting not specific objects, but where the light is catching on those areas, right? I think tiny bit of still direct yellow, not quite what I want. So I'll just gently vary it as I go. So maybe a bit more light next to that sign as a little fresher stroke. Maybe a little bit more here. Maybe I'll exaggerate it. Okay, but that extra light will come down below here. Gonna turn it to more of a different shape. Okay, gonna start having an in-between color. I'm just gonna see if I can pick up anything on the palette just to make this shadow slightly less dark. Okay, maybe a little too big. Can I use a bit of fresh white? Because I can use a bit of fresh white and make an extra border. White. Okay, good. I don't know if it's again cloth, if it's part of the architectural structure. I might keep this one straight and see if that appearance of the shape will be better. Okay, good. Not sure about this wobbly line. Let's partially straighten it here. Good. And perhaps a little more of that light, maybe less of the importance below. Just double checking my side, it's with a straighter area. Right, can I see something lit up? Here, that's a pavement, there's some goods in there. It's just touching up a different surface in a different way. There might be a man with maybe his hands on sunlit area. Again, there might be people's tops or bodies or what that light could be around. And I can see some more of that similar, maybe not as bold, but if I put it over my existing color, I think it will appear bolder. Maybe tiny bit of ochre, maybe even tiny bit of cadmium red, just to have slightly deeper highlight, but I think it will work quite nicely here for my left-hand side building. I want it slightly leaning over rather than leaning out. I might just bring it tiny bit more over here. Okay, I think that might have just got a little leaning out. Mhm. That's much more of a light on the building rather than counting windows and structure. But it interprets that light. And even more fresher white might just come right here, kind of a lit up border. We can immediately start seeing that reflective gathering of light. Apply that extra depth of the warmth from oak and cadmium red. I think I'll put it a little bit more at the back of the building here as well. I'd like some of these lines, but they're a little lonely. Can I add more additions or add more connections to that direction? So they don't look too on their own. Okay. You're right. Anything else on that arch of a similar color? Maybe not so fresh as some of the whites, but maybe still a little bit more bolder light coming back. Okay, that's okay. And it starts jumping out as if that light is just touched it. Yeah, and then it disappeared back into the shadow again. Just touched it a little. Okay, that's might be too strong. And again, can it just touch these little corners and these little steps of kind of bends. Okay, my brush is getting clogged up with some paint, so I might need to wipe it off. Okay, and I want more of my white and ochre, looking towards the white more than ochre, quite lovely and thick. Another advantage of my buff beigey buff titanium is that it's got a lovely consistency. If whites often could be quite tough paint, and you just need a little bit of our oils to soften it. Pre-mixed paints, which already contains white, like our cerulean, our violet gray, buff titanium, Naples yellow. They already got that color present, and it's a little easier to straight away edit to where we want to work with it. So let's have some more light on this building. I'm working for my white and oak, a hint of yellow. Just want to see a little bit of that addition. Auto texture, auto light, that wonderful presence of range of light moving through the building is there. It's not too precise. I'm painting the window frame a little bit more different, not continuing it all the way, but kind of finding what's a little bit darker, what's a little bit darker, lighter. Okay, any more fresher white, or maybe even paler. I haven't used any of my turquoise color, and I think that would be wonderful as well. Okay, that's slowly getting there and building up on details. Whatever that structure behind it, we can explore a little bit. Again, within the rhythm of strokes. I'll make my windows tiny bit more varied and light and dark. I just put something paler at the top, and then it could remain slightly darker at the bottom. It's not overly important to me if I don't make my windows perfect. The opposite, they're there, but other parts of the street are more interesting and taking our attention more. Gonna put a tiny bit of light for this building in between. That makes more of a golden color, so extra yellow with my paint. And I might follow a little bit of that golden sign. It's got that shiny effect. Do I want to put the actual words? No, I'm not very good at accuracy of little details, but if I put some of the range of letterings, that's give me enough information. And I can put my perhaps writing of similar things, interpretation of the writing of the sign of the shop. Actually, a bit more white across. Okay. Any other warmer colors? Maybe somewhere across. quite messy. I'm trying not to do too many details, but I think I might have to lift it off. Palette knife would have been good, but it's quite a small area, so I'm going to smudge all this, which didn't work for me. Create a neutral color, and then maybe come back with some more fresher color around just these shapes a little over. Too much information from them. Okay, even while that looks already better. Actually, I've got a plan if I were to add more cooler colors to this building. That might be another option of finishing it off. As we have used all the connective colors, yellows, oranges, how they link to our lighter purples, and they're all really working wonderful together with all the shadows. So now I'm going to introduce another little group of colors using emerald green with some white and then cerulean. Okay, so we'll have a turquoise and we'll have the emerald green a bit more. And we're going to start adding it on the light area. So this is my emerald green, which is looking quite pale with the white. But if I were to start introducing it on top of part of my building here, it will start giving me a beautiful, okay, can't quite see it there. Give me a lovely, lovely, gentle coolness. Just adjusted my camera so we can see that color a little bit more. And it's could go not just on that building, it could also go with a little bit of cerulean. Slightly lighter, slightly darker. I'd say maybe a slightly darker version and the one I just used earlier. I can add it for some beams or pillars going around the borders here. Some of that connection. I just create a rhythm of color rather than thinking what's actually behind it. That looks better. Okay. Some of the gaps of the darks could come here if I'll have more fresher green or blue. I think that lighter top area could be partially representing all the roof of something or beginning of the sky. Again, maybe too much details for the top. Simplifying it might be better. Going back to cerulean with white. We can touch up the spaces in the back. Creating more light for the shadows. So I've got a bit of more light on the hat here. I'm even getting more light for the pavement. I think that will be even more exciting light. Using that emerald green, cerulean. Putting some of these blocks. I'm thinking of putting more of this color all the way across. Right, I think I'm gonna take it off with my palette knife on the top here, because it's quite a lot of paint. And I'm thinking of painting very light. With some extra white. Even if I'll end up with appearance of the sky. I think it's will be quite exciting. More blue for my sky. Suddenly got a bit more shorter building, an extra light behind it, instead of an extra tall building behind it. And that fresh white at the base of that sky will give me that glow and the beautiful turquoise and yellows on the building will start being quite supportive to all of that. So not overly too much information, suggestive information. Find still shapes. And this could go with a break in between it. That's getting much more character now. Right, and the last things I wanted to touch up was my shadows. I think I'm going to stop on my light. There's loads of additions to it there already. Let's do tiny bit of additions to the shadows. For example, these ones just look a little bit too dark. They're actually slightly light on my painting than they're on the screen. But the additions will be very gentle. Let's say if I use some of my palette color which already has some white, or your white and ochre, something which contains lighter color. So for example, I can stretch the highlight of this block and it gives me space immediately. Yeah? I can stop and start that line, don't have to make it too perfect. I can put a little more of the opening of the front of the canopy here. The silhouette of it is there, but now I've got tiny bit more definition for it. So the shadow is wonderful, but it's not over solid. I might just tiny bit tidy this bottom line, slightly sharper. And if any of the light stretches, somehow I've got a bit of green here. Not sure where from. But it just gives me tiny, tiny, tiny bit, maybe not as bold as light as that. Just going to blend it. Yeah, got some space within that canopy. Got that a little bit of depth. This is quite a strong, big shape. Can anything else be found with some of the vertical lines, with a little bit of breaking that shape down a little more? Okay, could be anything broken down that way. Okay, these are a little bit similar. Can I use slightly more of cerulean and perhaps bring some of that cerulean over? Okay, if it's too light, you can always make it slightly darker, add a bit of Payne's gray to it. So it will have small qualities of that white opaque color, but doesn't have to be too solid. So I might leave that one there and overwork it. Okay, good. This is good as well. Another vertical. It's working into some of my patterns of light. This yellow is quite strong. Let's be slightly wider and then get narrower. Violet gray, be touched up. Any of my darker silhouettes of the people, I think this person could do with a little more of a body reshape. Maybe even another figure behind him. This looks better rather than too perfect. Okay, that's better. Right, any other tiny little strokes which might tell me more about the light on the ground? Quite like these little dabs of dots. Can I just follow any more fresher light from what I've got left on my palette? Okay, that's light enough. Lovely soft paint to work with this buff titanium. That's it. And just nice juicy strokes coming on top here. Just picking up a couple of more last nuances without overworking it, but just touching up any areas for more consolidation of simplified color. And simplified light and dark. And I think I'm happy to stop. Smaller shapes and contrasts in the center for our focal points. Okay, just put it, I've got a lot of similar dabs in this area, so that's gone. Little areas of light and dark, warmth, shadows, lovely range of and varieties of those shadows as well as lights. and mainly focusing on them rather than on the details. Just spotted this has gone slightly smudged back, so if I'll bring it over, that's it. Right. Thank you very much for painting with me today. I hope you'll continue exploring your lights and shadows and how blocky we can paint. And if you end up with doing another version of the street, or you pick up a picture of your own of the market, it doesn't have to be in Istanbul. It will be lovely to see your progress. So thank you very much for today, and I look forward to seeing your paintings. Bye bye for today. Thank you.